My sister got jealous because our granny loved me more than her and decided to set me up. I'm the younger of two sisters, and growing up, my sister and I were close, but always a bit competitive. Our grandma, who lived nearby, was a big part of our lives. She was the kind of person who made everyone feel special, baking cookies, telling stories, and giving the best hugs. But as we got older, my sister started to think Grandma favored me. I didn't see it that way. Grandma was just as warm with both of us, but she'd sometimes spend extra time helping me with school projects or praising my drawings. My sister, who was more into sports, didn't seem to care about that stuff, but I guess it started to bother her. By the time we were in our late teens, my sister was acting different. She'd make snarky comments when Grandma gave me a gift or asked me to help with something at her house. I brushed it off, thinking she was just moody. Grandma had a small antique shop she ran out of her garage, full of old jewelry, books, and trinkets she'd collected over the years. I loved helping her sort through the stuff, learning about each piece's history. My sister never showed interest, but she'd roll her eyes when I'd come home talking about it. I didn't think much of it until things took a turn. One summer, when I was 19 and my sister was 21, Grandma decided to pass down a few things from her shop to us. She gave me a silver necklace with a small emerald pendant, something she said reminded her of me because I loved green. My sister got a set of vintage earrings, which were nice but not as flashy. I could tell my sister wasn't happy. She barely said thanks and left the room. Later, she told me it wasn't fair that I got the better gift. I tried to explain that Grandma probably just matched the items to our tastes, but she wasn't hearing it. That's when I noticed her getting distant, not just with me, but with Grandma too. A few weeks later, I went to Grandma's to help clean out her shop. She'd been talking about retiring and wanted to catalog everything before selling the rest. We spent hours sorting through boxes, and she let me borrow a few items to try out for a family party we were planning. I took home a couple of rings and a bracelet, promising to bring them back. That night, I noticed my sister acting weirdly nice, asking to see the jewelry and even trying it on. I didn't think anything of it. She was my sister, after all. The next day, I got a call from Grandma. She sounded upset, saying some valuable pieces were missing from her shop. She didn't accuse me, but she mentioned the items I'd borrowed and asked if I'd taken anything else. I told her I hadn't, but my stomach twisted because I knew how it looked. I checked my room, and the bracelet I'd borrowed was gone. I asked my sister if she'd seen it, and she said no, but her face was too calm, like she'd rehearsed it. That's when I started to suspect she was up to something. I didn't want to believe she'd set me up, but the pieces weren't adding up. I decided to keep an eye on her while figuring out how to clear my name with Grandma. Have you ever had someone close try to pin something on you to get ahead? Drop your thoughts in the comments, plus smash that like button and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next part. After realizing the bracelet was missing and suspecting my sister had something to do with it, I felt uneasy but didn't want to jump to conclusions. Grandma's call had shaken me. She'd never sounded so disappointed. I decided to search my room thoroughly, thinking maybe I'd misplaced the bracelet. I checked every drawer, under my bed, even my backpack, but it was nowhere. I also noticed one of the rings I'd borrowed wasn't where I'd left it. I kept all the borrowed jewelry in a small velvet pouch on my dresser, and now the pouch only had one ring and the necklace. My sister's overly calm reaction when I asked about the bracelet kept replaying in my mind. I needed to figure out what was going on without accusing her outright. The next morning, I went back to Grandma's to help with the shop and clear the air. She was polite but quieter than usual, sorting through her inventory with a clipboard. She showed me a list of missing items: the bracelet, a gold ring with a ruby, a set of pearl earrings, and a small silver clock. The bracelet and ring matched what I'd borrowed, but the others were news to me. I told her I only took what she'd given me permission to borrow and promised to bring back the remaining ring and necklace that evening. She nodded, but said she'd have to report the missing items to her insurance company if they didn't turn up soon. Hearing that made me panic. Insurance reports could lead to police, and my name was tied to the borrowed pieces. I decided to keep a closer watch on my sister. That afternoon, she was in her room, scrolling on her phone. I casually asked if she'd been to Grandma's shop recently, maybe to help out. She said no, barely looking up, but her fingers paused on the screen for a second. I didn't push further, not wanting to tip her off. Later, I noticed she was dressed up to go out, which was odd for a weekday. She said she was meeting friends, but she was carrying a small black bag I didn't recognize. I couldn't follow her without being obvious, so I waited until she left and checked her room. I felt guilty snooping, but I was desperate. In her closet, tucked behind some shoes, I found a receipt from a local pawn shop dated 2 days earlier. It listed a silver bracelet and a gold ring sold for $150. My heart raced. This had to be the missing jewelry. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I called the pawn shop, pretending to be interested in a bracelet I'd seen in their window. The clerk described a silver bracelet with a floral clasp, exactly like the one I'd borrowed. I asked if they had a gold ring with a ruby, and he said it had already sold. I hung up, feeling sick. My sister had sold Grandma's stuff, and I was taking the blame. I went to Grandma's that evening with the remaining ring and necklace, explaining what I'd found. She listened but said she needed proof before believing my sister would do something like that. She agreed to hold off on the insurance report for a few days to give me time to sort it out. The next day, I decided to visit the pawn shop myself. I brought a photo of the bracelet from Grandma's catalog, hoping to confirm it was the same one. The clerk recognized it immediately and showed me the item. It was definitely Grandma's. He couldn't tell me who sold it due to privacy rules, but he mentioned the seller was a young woman with short brown hair, my sister's exact description. I asked if they had security footage, but he said it was only kept for a week and I'd need a police request to view it. I left the shop feeling frustrated, but more certain my sister was behind this. Back home, I noticed my sister was acting nervous. She kept checking her phone and avoided me when I tried to talk. That night, I overheard her on a call in her room, whispering about needing more cash and not telling anyone. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but it was enough to convince me she was planning something else. I decided I needed hard evidence before confronting her or telling Grandma everything. My plan was to check her room again when she was out and see if I could find the black bag or anything else tied to the pawn shop. I also thought about talking to her best friend, who might know something, but I wasn't sure if I could trust her to keep quiet. I was running out of time to clear my name, and the stress was starting to wear me down. Have you ever had to deal with someone close betraying your trust like this? If yes, like this video. If not, comment. Let's see how many of us had the same situation. With the pawn shop lead and my sister's suspicious behavior, I knew I had to act fast to get solid proof. Grandma was giving me a few days before filing the insurance claim, and I didn't want my name tangled up in a theft report. I decided to check my sister's room again when she was out. The next morning, she left early, saying she was going to the gym. As soon as her car pulled out, I went through her closet. The black bag was still there, and inside I found another pawn shop receipt. This one for a pair of pearl earrings sold 2 days ago for $80. It matched one of the missing items Grandma had listed. I also found a small notebook with numbers and dates, like a tally of money. Some entries had notes like sold ring and clock next. The silver clock was one of Grandma's missing pieces. I took photos of everything with my phone, making sure to put it all back exactly as I found it. I wasn't ready to confront my sister yet. I needed something undeniable. I remembered the pawn shop clerk mentioning security footage, so I called a friend who worked at a local electronics store and knew a bit about surveillance systems. He said pawn shops usually overwrite footage after a week, but if I could convince the clerk to check, they might still have it. I went back to the pawn shop with the photo of the bracelet and a picture of the earrings from Grandma's catalog. I explained I was trying to recover family heirlooms and asked if they could check their footage from the date on the receipt. The clerk was hesitant, but agreed to look after I showed him the photos and explained the situation without naming my sister. He came back saying the footage showed a woman matching my sister's description. Short brown hair, wearing a red jacket she often wore, selling the bracelet and earrings. He couldn't give me the video without a police request, but he wrote a note confirming what he saw and signed it. Armed with the photos, receipts, and the clerk's note, I went to Grandma. I laid it all out, the missing jewelry, the pawn shop visits, the notebook, and the clerk's description. Grandma looked heartbroken. She said she'd noticed my sister acting distant but never thought she'd steal. She asked me to bring my sister over that evening so we could talk as a family. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I agreed. When I got home, I told my sister Grandma wanted to see us both. She seemed nervous but didn't ask why, which made me think she knew something was up. That evening at Grandma's, I let her take the lead. She showed my sister the photos of the receipts and explained what the pawn shop clerk had said. My sister tried to play it off, saying she'd only borrowed the items to test them out like I had, but Grandma pointed out the pawn shop sales in the notebook. My sister got quiet, then admitted she'd taken the jewelry and clock. She said she needed money for car repairs and thought selling a few things wouldn't hurt, since Grandma was retiring anyway. She swore she wasn't trying to frame me, but it sure felt like it since she let me take the blame. Grandma didn't yell, she just said she was disappointed and needed time to think about what to do. Grandma decided not to report it to the insurance company or the police, mostly to avoid a bigger family mess. She asked my sister to pay back what she'd gotten from the pawn shop, which was about $230 total. My sister agreed, but it took her months to scrape the money together from her part-time job. Grandma also stopped letting her come to the shop, which hurt my sister more than she let on. I kept helping Grandma with the shop until she sold it a few months later. Things with my sister stayed tense. We didn't talk much after that. I moved out the next year, and while we're civil now, we're not close like we used to be. Grandma and I stayed tight, though, and she gave me the emerald necklace for good before she passed last year. It's a reminder of her love, but also of how jealousy can break things that matter.